Yes, welcome back from that package. If you just joined us, it is Daybreak Africa, and we are starting now with our discussion in the studio. And we're happy to let you know that our guest is already here. Now, according to report, we've heard that the National Assembly is planning to amend the 1999 Constitution as amended to create room for local government elections as conducted by INEC. Now recall that this is sequel to the Supreme Court verdict granting local government autonomy in a suit filed by the government of Nigeria. And of course, we shall be taking a look at another trending breaking story. It appears to be a rumor dropped by Shaware, our own Shaware, our investigative journalist, which we all know. So, we shall be taking a look at constitutional amendment 150 billion naira jet matters arising. There's a need for us to discuss that, and our guest today is Stephen Adewale. He is an historian and former chairman SDP Ondo State. It's an honor to have you on Daybreak Africa today.
Thank you. Good morning.
So we have rumors, we have counter rumors happening, but first and foremost, we're going to start with the constitutional amendment. There's talk about the constitution being amended to create room for elections, local government elections, because of the obvious leading to the granting of autonomy to local government. Since that happened, it has created and raised a lot of dust. There's been so much speculation. There's been reactions and counter reactions. I think we should start before we go in depth. Let us take a look at your reaction on the verdict, the local government autonomy being granted. We would love to start from there.
Thank you for having me once again. I'm glad to be here. Our democracy is 25 years old this year. And so it has not been a stagnant democracy. If we want to compare where we started from in 1999 to where we are today, we realize that we have actually made a lot of progress. But in the course of that 25 years, there is more or less like there are a lot of retrogression that are also taking place, in as much as we are making progress, because in a lot of areas, it's more or less like we are taking one step forward, then we are taking 4 steps backward. Now, let's start with this issue. Let's look at this issue of autonomy granted to the local government authority or administration. We know that when this democracy started in 1999, it wasn't like this. At that time, it was the three arms of the 3 tiers of government was clearly respected by the constitution. And if you look at the Nigerian constitution of 1999, that even people were claiming that it wasn't perfect, the constitution made it clear that the 3 tiers of government had to be respected, which is the federal government, the state government, and the local government. And between 1999 and 2006, the local government administrative system functioned very well in Nigeria. In fact, quite a lot of people who are governors today, people like Jason Wike and a lot of them who are governors or former governors, many of them cut their political teeth as local government administration, administrative officers, either as local government chairman or local government councillors. So it was a very robust system at that point in time. But there was a time that the same National Assembly came up with the federal government came up with what they tag as as a collective or joint allocation account, revenue account, where both the local government administration and the state government and the federal government will be contributing monthly into a joint account. Now the state government took advantage of that to subjugate the authority of the local government and to relegate them to the background. So now it's more or less like even till date, it's more or less like there is no radical difference from the local government administration and the state government. You won't even know the difference. So the fact that the Supreme Court came up with that verdict is actually a very good, so it's a welcome development. It's a welcome development in the sense that every politics is local. If there is going to be a development in any society, that development has to start from the grassroots.
From the grassroots.
Look at if you look at the United States of America, that we always refer to as our own beacon of examples. We realize that all their politicians, even including Barack Obama, they started at the grassroots. So it means if our democracy is actually going to move forward, if we are going to move from this level where we are now to the next level, it means we actually have to place priority on on what is happening at the grassroots. So in a way, it's a welcome development.
Many believe it's more like welcome development, but we tend to actually do away with the consequences. What then happens to LCDAs? What then happens to the general governance structure of our local government? Now, for one, I know for a fact many chairpersons at this point will be more like a novice to this new governing system. It's more like a new terrain for all of them, having to handle funds themselves, having to actually tend to go out there and get the job done. I don't think at this point they will be really capable to really handle such matters if it just happens so suddenly and abruptly. And bearing in mind there are some states that have no local government chairpersons at all. I think still like Anambra amongst other states in Nigeria. What then become of such states?
Now let's look at the ability of part of what you said. Let's start with the ability of the people who have been appointed to head this local government. To head this local government. Virtually all of them, quite a lot of them, or you can even say 95% of them, they are not novice into political administrative system. Many of them have been in politics for a while. So a lot of them, even presently, all of them who are appointed as either local LCDA chairman or caretaker chairman of local government or local government, all of them, they have been in power, and all of them, many of them have actually managed businesses in the past. So to manage local government, to manage a local government is not really a big deal. It's not really an issue. Yeah, but the issue is that we have to look at the capacity of the people who are being appointed. If the Supreme Court verdict, and that's, yes, like we said, it's a welcome development, and I also agree with you that there are lots of other things that we actually need to take care of. If those things are not well taken care of, it's not, so the dividends of democracy is not going to reflect at the grassroots. For example, if you look at what happened from 2007 till date, you discover that it is the governors who are appointing their lackeys into power. They are appointing those who they know that they will only listen to them, and they don't care about their ability to run the local government. Those local governments. So that's why we have the problem we have. And the problem with the LCDA has nothing to do with the Supreme Court verdict. Remember, in 1999, like I said, the Constitution was very clear. According to the Constitution, we have 774 local governments. But the Constitution also made it clear that the state government, because according to the Constitution, ordinarily the federal government and the state government ought to have equal power. So, which means, in as much as the federal government could create a local government, then the state government also has the power to create a local government. So that was what happened in Lagos between 2003 and 2007 when the then governor Tinubu decided to create about 35 LCDAs, that's local council development authorities. The administration of Obasanjo at that time we decided to withhold the Lagos state government revenue, because according to them, if the fund went to was sent to the state government, then the state government will use the fund that were meant for those federal government recognized local government to also take care of the other LCDAs. But the question is very clear. The state governors has the power. The state has the power to create LCDAs, but in as much as the state government has what it takes to take care to fund that LCDA. So it's quite clear. But the problem we have now, and that is the problem that this verdict is not going to solve. Now we have a situation where in Ekiti, for example, we have well over about 25 LCDAs that have been created for the past 4 years that are not even functioning at all, and they continue to appoint LCDA chairmen for those and other officials for those LCDAs. So the question now is this: now if the fund is going to be coming from the federal government directly to those federal government recognized or constitutionally recognized local government, so what is going to become of those LCDAs, especially in the states that are not financially strong enough to take care of the LCDAs. In Lagos State, for example, they are not going to have such a problem. In a place like Rivers State, they are not going to have such an issue. But in a place like even Ondo State, definitely it's going to be an issue. Remember, recently 33 LCDAs were created. And the questions that was being, let's not even talk about the process or the procedures that were followed to create that LCDAs, which was not even constitutional in the first place. If you look at what the Constitution stated, the Constitution made it clear that before you can create an LCDA, then you have to form a committee. Then there must also be a kind of referendum whereby you go out, people will vote that yes, that we need this that government has to be closer to us in this very area. But such things were not done in Ondo State. We just woke up overnight and the government just decided to create LCDAs. So the question now is that and despite the fact that, and on the eve of that verdict, the state government of Ondo State still went ahead and appointed chairman of a caretaker chairman for the committee for those for the existing 18 local governments and also for the 33 LCDAs. So we now have to ask the question. So now, effective from this month, if the federal government allocation will be coming directly to those local governments, then what is going to become of those LCDAs? The state that is still struggling to survive financially, virtually all the states, they are claiming that they can't even pay the 50,000 naira, they can't pay 60,000 naira as minimum wage, which is not actually up to anything. So they are claiming they can't pay. So how are they going to take care of these LCDAs? So it's more or less like they create them for political, what they call political convenience. Another problem is this. Now the money is going to be coming from this month, but we have to look at the capability or ability of the people who have been appointed as the caretaker chairman of this local government. Now we have in Ondo State, we have 18 local government caretaker chairmen. These were the people that definitely they are still responsible to the government, to the governor, because whoever pays the piper dictates the tune. Assuming we had a kind of robust local government election where people at the local government will go out, will canvass for votes, then the councillor will come to this area, will canvass for votes, then those people will know that they are responsible to the people. But this time around, they are responsible directly to the government. So, and don't forget, this is not the first time that the verdict of either the Supreme Court or the Appeal Court or the High Court would be ignored, would be deliberately ignored by the state government, by even the federal government. It's not the first time. So, and these are the things that we really need to look. So, before we celebrate too much about the verdict, we have to look at the effect, the mechanisms that would be adopted to put all those things in.
Now, reacting to what you've said, and of course the fact that the talk about amendment of the 1999 Constitution by this present administration because of the latest verdict. Some senators have actually said that the reason why they are pushing for it is the fact that they believe that some state governors will not adhere to the verdict. Again, from some sources, we actually heard that despite the Supreme Court verdict, that the next monies that will be paid will still be paid through the governors. Just like what you said, Nigerians are sitting down with their legs folded, waiting to see if the verdict, the Supreme Court verdict, will be adhered to the latter. Now, the question was also asked, who is afraid of local government autonomy? Why would, if the Constitution makes a provision from the beginning, of course, that provision was truncated. We want to find out what happened. At what point was that bridge created? What led to the bridge being created? And why would some governors in Nigeria who, like you said, enjoyed and have history from that setting, the local government setting, come up now to say, you know what, we do not want to see it come to fruition? I would want your reaction on all these emerging conflicts concerning local government.
Well, when
autonomy.
It comes to the distribution of fund, when it comes to the disbursement of fund, effective from this July, I think the federal government will abide by the Supreme Court verdict. The reason is, don't forget that the case was actually taken to the court by the federal government, which means that the president of the country has a direct interest in the case. And now the verdict has been delivered and it was in his favor. So which means now he has what it takes to actually implement what he felt it was the right thing to do. So definitely the disbursement, I don't think that is going to be that is going to be an issue. But again, in Nigeria, you know, you can't you can't really predict the way our politicians think, especially when you look at the body language of the governors. Because up till about 2 days ago, the governor of your state came out and criticized the Supreme Court verdict, and quite a lot of governors had also come out to say this is not good for democracy in their own way of viewing democracy. So we cannot really predict the level of negotiation or backdoor negotiations that will be going on between them and the presidency. But I feel that the presidency has what it takes to actually implement that. So implementation of that is not really an issue in terms of the disbursement of fund. But on how the fund is going to be managed is what we have to really concerned about, because we have to understand, just as you've said, that how did we find ourselves in this level? If we actually started very well in 1999, we have to look at what made the federal government of Obasanjo at that time, and also the Adewale led government who later came in 2007 to create that joint account, and what made a lot of governors, even though many of them who actually meant well, what made them to decide, or what made them to corner, or as they so to say, to corner the fund that was meant for the local government. You know, between 1999 and 2007, I'm sure a lot of us who are old enough will know that those governors, I mean those local government officials at that time, especially chairmen, the way they carried themselves at that time, they were more or less like the governors in their own domain. So corruption was rampant and it was everywhere. And you know, we live in a country where we have lack, where we don't have accountability. A situation where the local government chairman will siphon billions of naira and you take the case to the EFCC and not that, because he or she knows one godfather somewhere, then the case was buried. So as a result of that, some of those governors decided to take advantage of that. But now when they now decide to take advantage of that, they now, you know, the problem with Nigerians is that when you allow people to take a step, then they will double down, then they will take 10 at the end of the day. So now most of the governors now took advantage of that. Look at a place like Ondo State, for example. The monthly allocation for Ondo State, being one of the oil producing leader, the monthly allocation is about between 11 billion and 12 billion naira. But by the time you remove all the money that goes into overhead, like payment of salaries, and you realize that what they have left is nothing to write home about. Remember, they will still have to pay the salaries and take care of the interest of about 1,000 political office holders and at different positions. So now they still have they now have the local government fund, which was coming from the federal government to rely on. So the things that the government now the local government used to do in the past, like repair of road, that's what the governors are doing these days, and you see that they will say they are commissioning. So we don't really have capital project. Again, we don't really have a situation where the governors will come and say, this is what I really want to do, that will not that cannot be quoted to what a local government chairman ought to be doing.
My next question as to what would now be the responsibility of the local government, or what's now the responsibility of the state government? And at this point, is there going to be more like a relationship between local government and state governments in the state? Is there going to be a synergy, or is it going to be more like a scratch my back, I scratch your back basis, since we are still based on appointment?
I think it has to do with our with the way we run our democracy. The issue we have here is that we are in a country where the president will want to have control over what is happening at the state. Then the state governors will also want to have control over what is happening at the local government. That's why this pronouncement is not really going to yield any positive result. It will change nothing at all. Especially with the body language of the politicians. In fact, it will even make the matters worse. Remember that in the past, we always whenever there is a state election, you see people will be afraid of thuggery and now the thuggery will be domesticated. It will be localized, because now, especially now that the people know that there is money, there is enough fund involved by the local government, then the state governor wants to do everything within his or her power to ensure that it's a member of his political party emerge as the governor, I mean as the local government chairman. Then also they also want to ensure that the councillors who are representing each ward, that they are from their political parties. Remember this, why I said we shouldn't be too, that's why when people talk about constitutional amendment, it's not just about the constitutional amendment. We have a constitution that is clear, that says that there is a separation of power, very clear separation of power, executive, then we have legislature, then we have the judiciary. But what are we having at the state levels now? We're having a situation where you cannot even distinguish between the legislative arms of government and the executive arms of government. It is whatever the governors want. That now it's even so worse. It has become worse under this APC. Since 2015, now the things are really taking a terrible turn, even at the federal level. You see a situation whereby the Senate president is now going out to commission a project on behalf of the president of the country. So where do you see that happening in any other advanced democracy? Even in a developing democracy, you don't see that, because this is the head of an arm that's supposed to be watching or playing an oversight role over the executive arms of government. Now the same man is now the one representing the president in functions across the country. So that is where the problem is. So if our politicians, if our system, if the democratic system we claim to be practicing could bridge the gap that was supposed to be in existence between the executive and the legislature, then I don't really think that anything is going to be different at this local government.
What then becomes the role for state governors in the state, and what then is the role for chairpersons?
No, it's quite clear. Like if you look at the constitution, most of the things that the governors are doing these days, they are the responsibilities of the local government chairman. For example, we have an area here. This part of Ondo, for example, is Ward 9. Now, in this Ward 9, assuming we add a robust local government administrative systems, this Ward 9 will have at least we have units in Ward 9. In this particular Ward 9, we have about 15 units. Now, those 15 units, each unit will have a councillor in each of the ward. Now it is the responsibility of that councillor to ensure that the road, or maybe there was a transformer problem and all, it is the responsibility of the councillor to take care of that. Remember, as the fund is being disbursed to the local government, that fund is also it's not only going to be sitting down on the table of the local government chairman. It's that we already have a sharing formula. It's already clear on what should go to each councillor. So those councillors will be the one to take care of that. Then the local government chairman is now has the responsibility to make sure that the major road in the town that is bad, so it is their work to repair, to refurbish and all that, drainages and all that, even markets, to build markets. So it's actually their responsibilities. But if you look at what has been, even under Binitie administration in Ondo State and a lot of other, you see this building, construction of mega schools and all that. These are the works these are the supposed responsibilities of the local government.
Now, talking about revenue, I got this, taking development closer to the people. The focus for this is the grassroots that you talked about. No grassroots, no development. In fact, a lot of people have said that grassroots development is the panacea for development generally across board. Now, it is worthy of note that according to Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, the current revenue sharing formula is as follows. It says the federal government takes 52.66% of the revenue share. States get 26.72%, while local government get 20.6%. But so far, governors have taken 46.76%, 26.72% plus 20.6%, which was supposed to go to local government with no commensurate tangible impact to show to the masses of Nigeria, which are at the grassroots. Now, the question is, like what Ezekiel is trying to understand, which we've said before, how do we begin to hold leaders accountable? some people have said that this old brouhaha with the local government autonomy and the case that was filed by Tinubu is just as the man clearing his pathway and making plans to return in 2027. So a lot of people are viewing all of this from different angles and really airing their emotions about it. So how do we hold them accountable? Some have said that when the dust begins to rise, that probably Tinubu will just back off and leave local government at the grassroots to fend and fight for themselves without even saying anything. After all, he has kick-started the whole thing into motion. So how do we begin to hold governors, local government chairmen, when the money is at its burst eventually? How do we get the results that we desire?
Thank you. Now, this issue of this sharing allocation formula, this problem did not really start today, but it's just unfortunate that now we have successive leaders that by the time when they get to power, they see how beautiful it is, so they decide to continue with that same retrogressive policy. This sharing allocation formula started as far back as 1950s, and since we gained independence in 1960, people had been arguing. Scholars had written, politicians and the oppositions have shouted that these things have to be, that there must be a restructuring. If you look at the United States of America, for example, you realize that the federal government, the resources that is being allocated to the federal government every month is not as much as what is being allocated to the state, because like we said, every politics is local, and democracy, we call it the democracy that the system that where we take care of the people. It means that the federal government, there are certain responsibilities they have to, so they are far from the people. Those who are closer to the people, they are the state government and the local government. So it means that there is much of the resources should be going to those two tiers of to those arms of two tiers of government. So the same thing is being practiced in every other democracy. But in our own system, we see a situation whereby the federal government is taking the lion's share of the allocation of the generated revenue every month. And out of that 52 that you mentioned, 1% will go to the FCT. So which means that we can say that authoritatively say that the federal government is has 51% out of that allocation every month, and that is still more than what the state, the local government, and even the federal together, the FCT, as when you combine them together. So what that is telling us is that if we are going to hold anybody responsible, remember the federal government controls all the monitoring agencies. So what that means is that charity will have to begin from home. It means if we are going to hold the people at the grassroots, at the local government, at the state government accountable, then it has to start from the federal government. A situation where you have the governor, where you have the president that also has a skeleton in his or her cupboard. So it's going to be difficult for such a person to hold any other person responsible. Look at what has been happening since 2003. It's more or less like we are just deceiving ourselves when it comes to this, when it comes to monitoring how people loot the resources, or how people use the money to develop the society. They created Economic Financial Crimes Commission. They ensured that all the leaders of that commission was reporting directly to the president. The president was taking instruction directly from the president. What that means is that whoever can hire can fire. So the same thing we have with ICPC, that's Independent Corrupt Practices Commission. We have a debt management. We have quite a lot of them whose responsibilities are to monitor the excesses of our politicians and all the government officials. But because the federal government already has an ulterior motive, so it's going to be difficult. And that's why I say we are going to just continue to deceive ourselves if we continue, if we think that there is going to be a progress. Before now, the federal government, Nigeria as a country, was signatory to an international transparency agreement that says that freedom of information must be extended to the local government. That the fund being given to the allocated to each local government must be made available. But for the past 15 years, the federal government itself has deliberately decided not to even make that public. So it means that if the Tinubu administration actually wanted to do something different, so the best, the first thing to do was to make sure that to make what has happened or the atrocities that have been perpetrated in the last 15 years to make it public. But they dare not do that because if you look at the people in power, 80% of the people in power, they are from the ruling party. And just as you said, the president is also interested in running for a second term. Yes, the president wants to do good, but at the same time, it's not less that you want to do good at the right, but you know that you have a lot of baggages that will hinder you from doing that. These are the governors and the people that you are going to need to run your dubious election, whatever election that you want to run in 2027. So it's really an issue. So monitoring is the problem, and not until all those agencies, not until they are granted autonomy, like EFCC, for example, like even INEC, because we have to look at the ability, the characteristics of the people that are being elected. So not until INEC, EFCC, ICPC, and other monitoring agencies have clear autonomy, just as they have in US and other developing economy. That's when we can start talking about monitoring.
Now, before we go on our first short break, I just want to digress a little bit and take a look at the Constitution, 1999 Constitution as amended. It says that this Constitution is supreme and its provisions shall be binding or be a binding force on the authorities and persons throughout the Federal Republic of Nigeria. 2, the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall not be governed, nor shall any persons or group of persons take control of the government of Nigeria or any part thereof, except in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. It says if any other law is inconsistent with the provisions of this Constitution shall prevail, and that other law shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. My question before we go on the short break, in your opinion, as the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 Constitution as amended, really served its purpose to Nigerians? Just briefly before we go on.
Like I said, we have not been stagnant in the last 25 years. People keep shouting that there is inconsistency in the Constitution. Yes, we understand. But if you actually look at the Constitution that was given to us by the military government in 1999, and now you now go back again and now get the Constitution of 2024. That's that we already have radical. We already have we have made clear progress in what we have in the Constitution, because all these amendments, quite a lot of amendments. Remember, between 1999 and 2003, we have 6 assemblies, 6 national assemblies. So, and each of the assemblies, for example, between 2019 and 2023, the National Assembly, that's Senate and the House of Representatives combined, came up with 81 constitution, which was amended and which was included in that constitution. So it means that that constitution has not been stagnant. So we have actually been making progress in terms of this constitutional amendment. So, but we have to now look at the characteristics of what you just read. That's what's supposed to be. That's an ideal. That's an ideal situation, but in reality, we are not actually working to. Remember, this constitution will not implement itself. We have to elect people that will come and implement those constitutions. Let me give you an example. The constitution is clear when it comes to electoral system. For example, one that is very clear. Recently, the constitution, the constitutional amendment was carried out, and they said in our electoral system that if you want to run for an office, either as a member of House of Assembly, that your primary election must take place in your constituency. Then if you are running for the Federal House of Representatives, which means you have two in Ondo, now we have Ondo West and Ondo East. That means your primary election must take place in either of the 2 federal constituencies. Then if you are running for Senate, which is a zone, then your election for Ondo Central, for example, must take place in either Akure or any city in the Central. But in 2022, we witnessed a situation whereby the governor of Ondo State, who is now late Akeredolu, decided to move all the primary election of a senatorial district in Ondo North and move everything to the Central. It was clear. But when they got to court, the same court interpreted it in another way. So you don't need, most of these things, you don't even need a suit. You don't even need to go to school before you can actually say this is what the constitution says. But the problem is with our system. Like I said, this issue of separation of power is no longer there. Our problem is not with the constitution. The constitution is clear. If you look at the section 2 of that constitution, we have everything we need to make progress.
So the people,
it is the people who are implementing, who are interpreting that constitution that we just have to point that. So they are the ones that we have to blame.
Wow. So it's getting heated right here. So we need to take a chill pill so we can take tea, sip tea, and you know, go straight on now to the business segment, which is our breaker for tea on Daybreak. And of course, like we love to say here, that segment is for you to ensure that you are financially independent as a youth with small money.
You start chickeny money.
Chickeny, you start something very good. We'll take that break, and when we return, our guest will still be here as we go to another topic, which is interesting. Stay with us. Yes, thanks for still being there. That was our breaker, the Go Start Business. Ensure you run with everything that you heard or saw today. That decision can just change your life. All right, if you just joined us, you missed the first part of our discussion, but not to worry, we're about to begin another one that is trending right now. It's in the mouth of everybody, every Nigerian, both at home and in diaspora. They're talking about this. Our guest is still here as we go on now to matters arising in terms of Sowore telling Nigerians that, you know what, with all the talk about monies not being in the country, with all the Nigerians are going through, that the jets that they've been talking about, the presidential jet has been bought for $100 million US. It's speculation, it's rumor. But we want our guest to react to this trending story. Before we started the show, you were actually telling us Akpabio's stance on the matter, saying that the president's life is very important and is worth whatever money is spent at this time in our history to get a new jet. Your take on this unfolding drama?
Well, I'm not surprised, though, like you rightly said, the Comrade Sowore's claim is yet to be substantiated. But I won't be surprised if it turns out to be true. The reason is that you know, if you look at how the events, the unfolding events in the last 3 weeks, you realize that the government can decide to buy the jet overnight. Where suddenly the National Assembly decided to come up with to come up with a public hearing, according to them, so to say. But the public hearing was actually a secret hearing, which was not actually public in the real sense of the word. And that alone should it's I don't want to use a very wrong word or a very strong word, but I think it calls to question the kind of democracy that we practice. You know, if you study our system, the system we practice since 1999, you realize that every president has its own its method of implementing policies. But this particular government under Tinubu, it might end up to be the worst government in the history of Nigeria.
Why so?
The reason is
that
when government if you look at what the policy that has been the constitution, that the act that has been passed by the National Assembly since 2023, we discovered that anything that involves the president, they will hardly debate it for 24 hours before they will pass it, and that is not supposed to be. It shows that it means once they know that this president has interest in this, then president will use his people at the National Assembly to push that. And since the Senate president, the speaker, and all of them, they are on the same side of the aisle, then they will just look at the National Assembly and national anthem, for example. Look at how long it takes our National Assembly, our elected officials who are being paid to deliberate and to debate on what is good for the country. Look at how long it takes how long it took them to sit down and to just pass the act to change the national anthem. So you cannot go to any democracy, even in a struggling democracy in other countries, you won't see something like that. Then how come that is our National Assembly, that officials that will come and say, oh, that we want to carry out a public hearing on what happened to the president, to the presidential jet? One would have expected that when they are calling, that when they want to sit down and deliberate, then they would have even go back into history and look at what happened, and ask questions about what happened to those jets in the past. Presently, we have 10 presidential jets presently. Now, and remember under Buhari, that jet, because in 2021, President Buhari also had the same issue when they told us that those presidential jets developed fault, especially two of them. Then they decided, okay, that they were going to sell two. At that time, the National Assembly advised that those jets should be given to the United Army, to the Nigerian Air Force, instead of selling them. Now, till date, whether those aircraft were sold or whether they were given to the Air Force, nobody knew what where they sent them to. Now presently we have 10 in the fleet, in the presidential fleet. Now, out of that 10, according to the maker of the planes, what they told us is that each of the aircraft has a 30 years lifespan. And if you go to other countries like where they have robust airline system, like if you check Nigeria, British Airways, for example, you realize that British Airways still has about 25-year-old aircraft in its fleet. But in our own case, the oldest of the aircraft that we have presently is 18 years old. That is the oldest, because all the aircraft, all the aircraft were bought under what's the name, Obasanjo to Yaradua and Jonathan. So are they now telling us that the aircraft of 18 years old is already old? So I think we are not asking the right question. Yes, we understand that the life of the president is quite important, and I was listening to some of the argument made by some of the APC apologists when they refer to the countries where their president had crashes recently, like Iran, for example, like quite a number of points. But the problem is that if you look at what happened in Iran is a country that is under international sanction, so they do not have what it takes to manage and to service their aircraft. So that's why they rely on using helicopters. But in our own case, our country is not going through that experience. So now 18-year-old aircraft is not old. Remember, like I said, under Jonathan, they sold 2 of those aircraft to United Arab Emirates. Now till date, they are still using those aircraft without complaint. So it shows that we have to start asking questions about our maintenance culture. Because recently the argument is that president was stuck in Netherlands because he was on his way from Netherlands, he was going to Saudi Arabia. He was stuck because of the faulty jet. So we have to start asking questions. It might be a case of somebody who wants to do something, decide not to do it, and just siphon the money. So we have to start asking questions.
Who would ask the questions?
That's what I'm saying.
Who would ask the questions? Who will give the answers? That's
exactly
what
I'm saying. That we have a national assembly.
Who do we ask? Where do we go?
The National Assembly, who ought to play
because
an
Nigerians are
role.
Asking questions. You won't say that Nigerians are not asking questions.
The National Assembly ought to play and we have to go back to Nigerians. We have to ask ourselves the questions, and we have to tell ourselves the truth that this set of individuals that have been elected into office, we should know that whatever these our leaders, they are the reflection of the people. We all live in this country. We know what happened on election day, and we keep telling our people that we cannot continue to sell our birthright just because of porridge or just because of a plate of rice. And at the end of the day, you now expect things to be different. It's not going to be different. The individuals who go there, they will continue to do things in a very wrong way. So we have to hold our elected officials responsible. If, for example, if I'm from Ondo State, if I have a senator that is not asking questions, then it's my responsibility to hold that senator responsible. So that if the senator is coming back in 2027 and is asking me for a vote, I would rather take my vote to somewhere else than to vote for that same individual. So these our people, they are not asking the right question, because now they claim that they bought 150 billion naira worth of aircraft. The question is that what is the guarantee that what befell those abandoned aircraft will not
before the new
one.
I think
so these are
is
the questions
it
we
more
should
like
be asking.
one bad decision if at all this rumor turns out to be true? Is it going to be more like one bad decision, or generally you tend to question this current administration expenditure generally more like it's not justifiable at all considering our current economic situation in this country?
We don't even need somebody who has a crystal ball to tell us that this thing is going to have a long-term implication. Look at other countries. Canada is richer than us. Presently, Canada president recently came out. The cabinet came out and announced to their citizens that the presidential jet was already 28 years old. So and it's already having issues. So it's no longer reliable. Now instead of buying a new aircraft, what they did was that they approached one of the national fleet, that's Air Canada, to loan them to give them one of the aircraft. So it's not every day that president goes out. So anytime president is going out, then the government will pay them. Then by the time they come back, they continue with their life. Then the same thing with even in Britain, the prime minister of Britain has no presidential jet. The president of Britain rely on British Airways jet. So anytime they are going out, so they approach the British Airways who give them. So these are the questions. Like I said, we should be asking these questions. How come that in Nigeria, for example, we don't even have any national carrier? This is more or less like the only country in Africa that is not having it. That's only the developed. We have countries that are not even as economically developed as us. Rwanda, for example, look at the Rwanda in its national carrier. Rwanda has over 130 airline. You see them in Nigeria, you see them traveling everywhere, to London, to America, to everywhere. So the same thing with Uganda, the same thing with Egypt Air. Look at Egypt, for example. Egypt is as rich as many countries in the world. No, you can't even compare Egypt to Nigeria in terms of in terms of financial, in terms of development. Yet the president of Egypt rely on Egypt Air.
Now,
even in America, do you know that the Air Force, the presidential Air Force, did not even belong to the president of America? It was being controlled by the U.S. Air Force. That's the Air Force One.
Now, Shore's allegation raised questions about fiscal responsibility and transparency in governance, and that's exactly what we're talking about now. You've analyzed the fact that there are different ways to go about it, and the question is, who will ask the questions? Nigerians have been asking questions, and forever and ever, we never get the transparency that we want. We're talking about the Nigerian Constitution that is plain in black and white. But like you said, that it cannot implement itself in its people, but somehow we'll find a way to turn it upside down to suit ourselves, which is what we often do. So the question is this the right time, if any? Okay, let me go back. Why should we have 10 airplanes in our fleet, a presidential fleet, number one? You talked about maintenance culture. How come we don't have a maintenance culture in the country? And thirdly, with what we're going through in the nation, should this be the time where $100 million be spent on getting a presidential jet?
This is not the we don't even have the luxury to go through this at this very point in time. But like I said, Nigerians, no matter what we say, we still have to go back to Nigerians, because all these individuals, we elected them. So, and this constitution will not implement itself. These individuals who have been elected, they are the ones who will go there and implement what the letter of that constitution. So if all of them who are there now decide to conspire together, both the executive and the legislature, and say this is how we are going to do it, people will have no choice but to just go with whatever they
Nigerians
do.
don't have a choice?
We have power. That power was what we used to vote them into power into office in 2023. 2027 is just around the corner. And remember, we keep telling our people, and it's not even looking like things are going to change, because look at a place like Ondo State, for example. We have a governor presently who is also running for office. So now that governor has been in power since his principal died. He has been in power now for 8 months. So we should now ask ourselves, what are the things that this governor, what policies has he implemented? How much revenue has it generated in the last 7-8 months? So how have they been able to manage those resources? But people are not asking those questions, and people are acting as if there is no problem. So, and now election will come in November, people will still say, oh, APC, and they will still vote for the same. I'm not saying only bad people are only in APC, but all I'm saying is that we should learn how to hold our elected officials accountable. So if we learn how to do that, things are definitely going to change. But if we do not do that, definitely this problem will continue and will remain in this circle for quite a very long time. Because the good thing is that we are not running like a company. You remember, if it was like a company, like this company where you are now, you may not have the right to decide who head the company, because the owner will have to dictate whatever happens and all. So in that, you cannot really blame the people who are working there. But if you are the country where, if we have a vote, that I have a vote to decide who head my household, it means that if anything is happening, so I should be held responsible. And if I also have the power to correct that, that's the beauty of democracy. If I have the power to correct that in 2 years, it means if the head of my household is coming in 2 years to say this, I will say no, I want to vote for somebody maybe younger or older than you that I know can serve my interest, can protect my interest. So this is what we keep telling our people. This democracy we are practicing, we have to make sure that we now take it, we now practice it in the real way we ought to practice it. So let's do away with this monetary system where we just go to the polling unit and we just vote. Election, you see, look at this election. Why are people surprised with what is happening now? We have for about 8 or 9 months we ran. So there was a campaign, and the president who is there now never came up with any meaningful policy. Each time he steps out and opened his mouth to say something, it always created problem, saying a lot of things that was wrong. Yet people still went ahead and still voted. So that's, and if you say those people did not vote, and another problem we have is not only with the ruling party, we shouldn't deceive ourselves. Because if you look at what is happening at the National Assembly now, we have people who are also from the opposition party. We have 2 members in the Senate. We have 2 members of SDP who are there. Then we have quite a lot of them who are from Labour Party. But the problem is that our people, those who even want to do things the right way, many of them will still vote with emotion. Look at what happened with the Labour Party. We discovered that many people who emerge as the elected officials from the Labour Party platform, people did not know them. Maybe out of sentiment for Obi. We even had the case of an Okada rider who emerged as a candidate from Labour Party and who was eventually elected. All the people who voted him, they never saw. So they've never seen the person. So how do you now? There is nothing wrong with an Okada rider. Imagine as the representative of the people. In fact, that should even be a good thing, because the person already knows what people are suffering. Exactly. But what made it to be wrong is that it's possible that it might be the thieves or armed robbers among the Okada riders that were voted for. That's why you see them in Abuja. Now they are in Abuja. We are talking about 150 billion naira. What happened to all the millions of naira that were spent in procuring a jeep for the members of the National Assembly? Both the opposition and both the members of the ruling party and members of the opposition collected that, and none of them could stand to say no, that we do not need this, that the country could not afford this at this time.
So just to take us just aback for a moment, but still on the table of revenue and funding. Now, most often we see our governors coming out to wail and shout and tell us they have a low funding, inadequate funding. Now, situation where we have local government autonomy and all that, and they tend to show that most, or should I say most, or better part of the responsibility of the state governors. How would this funding be just enough for them? And added to this, I know we're almost out of time. Do you think regional governance will tend to help in this structure? Regional governance.
Now, let's start with the governors. We should ask us, our presidential candidate in SDP asked the same questions during the campaign in 2022. How come that these same individuals who continue to claim that the funding was not enough, how come they continue to remain in office? we were in 2001. There was a president who came to power in Argentina. Within 24 hours, the man decided to submit his resignation letter because according to him, he has a lot of ideas, but you could see that the resources, the financial was not enough. So now, but in our own situation, since 1999, we've never witnessed justice, we've never recorded a situation where one governor or even a councillor decided to submit his or her resignation letter because there was no resources. So if they are telling us that there is no resources, then just know that something is wrong. I think it's just it's just the way we place our priority as a country. Look at, like I said, look at Ondo State, for example. Now I keep talking about Ondo State because Ondo State is one of the 36 states, and also because I have a lot of data when it comes to Ondo State. Now in Ondo State, when they tell you that they do not have resources, yet the same state will continue to appoint special advisor, senior special advisor. Let's even go from Ondo State. Even in the north, we've recorded a situation where a governor, just a member, a commissioner will appoint 70 advisors. So even if you are paying each of those advisors 50,000 or 100,000 naira, so you can multiply that and know what that will amount to in 4 years. So the money is there. That we shouldn't just deceive ourselves that there is no money, that there is no fund. Like you said the other time, it was very clear what should be the responsibility of the governors, and many of them, they actually know the right thing to do. I remember when I was an undergraduate in OAU. Then the man who later emerged became the governor, Adegbeshola. Adegbeshola at that time was in court because he alleged that the election was rigged and Oyinlola was returned to power. So when he came, I was there when he was telling us sharing his brilliant ideas with us. And he told us, I still remember he mentioned that if you are traveling from Miami all the way to Texas, that's the distance of where he mentioned was even longer than the entire country combined, because from Miami to Texas is even more than 1 million square kilometers. Yet the entire landmass of Nigeria is just 982 square kilometers. So that should tell you how vast that place is. He said from that Miami to Texas that what you are going to be seeing from the right and the left is farm. You are going to be seeing a lot of things, and so he was sharing with us how he was going to do that in Osun, and a man who was also running for the Senate at that time, Omo Wurare, was also there with him. Now by the time in 2015 they've been in power for about 6 years, we did not see any farming system, no development, nothing. And I remember that these same people came about 6 years ago and they were sharing these brilliant ideas with us. And at that time I was the secretary to the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs. So I was one of those days I was discussing with a senator. It's no longer in the Senate now, but it's still in APC, still in one of the political appointees of the president. I was discussing with Senator Mowurare. I asked Senator, sir, what people said in OAU on that day that you were going to do, why is it that this idea, I said, that those ideas will take 10 years to implement, but our people that people will need something that they will see, and they continue to give us a cosmetic implement cosmetic policies. So many of them actually know the right thing to do. Many of them knew how it works in those countries, but when they come here, then they will decide to do something else. So the resources are there. That if the resources are not there, you will not see them spending on frivolities and doing all those things. We were in Kogi happens to be one of among the poorest states in Nigeria. Now look at the revelation that came out from the EFCC stable recently about the atrocities, financial atrocities committed by Governor Bello. So that's how I say it's not even about being about whether you are young or you are old. It is now more or less like a country of crook.
And what about
everybody just wants
regional governance? Do you see
regional governance is not really going to solve any problem, and it's not going to solve anything, because we have to ask ourselves the question. Regional governance is more or less like the people who are claiming that they don't want to be part of Nigeria, they want to be Biafra, they want to be this. The question is that who are the people who are going to head the regional governance? Are you going to bring people from heaven to head the regional governance? We are still going to be stuck to these same individuals. And like I keep telling people that, look, if you want to say that I'm not against anybody living, if you say you want to leave Nigeria, but we have to tell ourselves the truth. If you say you want to leave and go to the east and go to the north, and you are not going to leave me in the west, and you are still leaving me with Buhari, with Obasanjo, you are still leaving me with this same president, you are still leaving me with all these governors that we are seeing. So there's not going to be development, because they too that they are living, remember the people who are going to be heading them, they are still these same individuals. Are you getting my point? So it's not going to solve any. So it's not going to solve any problem. What is going to solve the problem is this democracy that we're already practicing. And for us to be, for our people to now decide to do, it's getting better. There was a time that on the election day you dare not step out, because you'll be afraid that there will be we still have a ballot box snatching, we still have to be, but it has reduced drastically. Now what they do is that now, because politicians know that our votes count, that's why you see that today they will write on their election day, they will come with money. And it's also a challenge to each and every one of us that we have to do that thing, because if care is not taken, see, these two parties, APC and PDP, will continue to rule us as long as they want to. Because I've been there, I'm a politician myself, so I know that if you want to go to court, because we should stop blaming our court for virtually everything. If you want to go to court, because our constitution is already clear that if an election takes place, then INEC has already delivered and performed its responsibility. So if you now feel like that, if you are convinced that INEC has not done its job properly, so the burden of proof lies on you. But that burden of proof, if you don't have it, you are not going to change anything in court. And that's what the court continues to say, and the politicians know that as well. Look at Ondo State, for example. During the last election in this state, we had a situation where we had 16 political parties, and my party was among the leading parties at the time. I was the chairman of the party at the time, so I know the statistics. I know that in Ondo State we have 2,798 polling units. Now, out of those 2,798 polling units, APC was able to present polling unit agents in every polling unit. PDP was able to present in virtually all the polling units except 2. Now, the third party that presented the highest number of polling unit agents was SDP. We only managed to present 1,001. 1,000, not 100, 1,001. That means SDP was not going to be represented in over 2,000, in nearly 2,000 polling units. Now, the Labour Party was only able to present in 416 polling units. So the question now is this: if after the election we knew that, okay, things went wrong, because, for example, there was a local government in Ose, there was a polling unit in Ose where our presidential candidate got 84, and it was counted. But by the time it was being uploaded on IREV, we realized that 84 had been given to APC, and they gave us 2. But we could not go to court based on that evidence alone, because we need to be able to present evidence in all the available polling units. So if opposition parties are not doing the right thing, then these individuals, these people, this setup will continue to rule us as long as they want. Wow. So it's a challenge to everybody, to politicians in the opposition, and also to our people as well. Because there is one thing for people to vote, there's another thing for them to change it before it reach the IREV. So if they change it, if you don't have evidence, then you don't blame court for not giving Obi or anybody. Few days to that election, the national chairman of Labour Party was still telling the national chairman of INEC to please give them the names of all their polling unit agents, which means that even the national chairman was not even privy to what was going on. What are you now going to court for? Which evidence are you going to present before the court? So if court now decide that no, based on the evidence, these are the people that, so you cannot blame them.
Time is never our friend. Can you imagine, just when it was getting really hot and interesting, you have to come back. We have to have a conclusion to this matter on ground. You would agree, right? Yes, I know you agree. Unfortunately, this is all time will permit on the show today, where we've been talking on constitutional amendment and, of course, 150 billion naira jet matters arising. Our guest, Stephen Adewale, is an historian, evident, right? And also the former chairman, SDP Ondo State. We appreciate you so much for being on the show, and hope to definitely see you again to conclude on this argument, as it were. Stay safe. I am Anire Binitie. Bye from me.
Have a great day. I remain Ezekiel Ogar.